Alright, guys, myself Dr. Vivashwan. Today I'm going to discuss with you about the rotation of the gut. So, while discussing about mesentery, we have already discussed that the gut undergoes a process called as rotation during the embryological conditions, and that gut, the mesentery is the structure, is a peritoneal fold, which is actually stabilizing the gut during the process of development. So first of all, I want to make it clear that this rotation of the gut takes place by keeping the superior mesenteric artery as the axis. Superior mesenteric artery as the axis, and the degrees of rotation is 270 degrees, and the direction of rotation is the anti-clockwise direction. These things I want to confirm. I'll write it down. First thing, primary is the axis of the rotation is superior mesenteric artery, and the second thing is the direction of rotation is anti-clockwise, and the degree of rotation is about 270 degrees. The degree of the rotation is 270 degrees. Then, for our convenience, we can split this for our understanding purpose. We can split this 270 degrees into two phases: the first phase and the second phase. First phase will be 90 degrees, and the second phase will be the 180 degrees. So that for our ease, for our convenience, we can split this. So 270 degrees. The first phase will be around 90 degrees. The second phase will be around 80 degrees. 190 and 180 and 270 degrees. So let us get into the topic proper. So how this rotation takes place? There is something called as physiological umbilical hernia. So the physiological umbilical hernia, it takes place during the sixth week of the intrauterine life, during which the midgut will be herniated into the umbilical cord, in vital intestinal the vital intestinal channel. It will be getting herniated, and by the ninth week of intrauterine life, it will be back. It will be occupying its own position. That will be called as the regression of the umbilical hernia. So this regression of the umbilical hernia, it takes place by the ninth week of the intrauterine life. The physiological umbilical hernia, it takes place during the sixth week of intrauterine life, while the regression takes place during the ninth week of intrauterine life. This thing has been checked in your entrance examination. So one thing I would like to say here, what is the need for this physiological herniation to occur? So you know that the developing gut is divided into three parts: foregut, midgut, and the hindgut. The midgut, the arterial supply of the foregut is the celiac trunk from the abdominal aorta. The midgut arterial supply is the superior mesenteric artery, and the hindgut arterial supply is the inferior mesenteric artery. The superior mesenteric artery, it acts like an axis for the rotation, and here the midgut will be extensively undergoing into number of coils, the coils of jejunum and the coils of ileum as well. So to accommodate it, there will be not enough room inside the developing midgut portion. So to allow that coiling to occur, it's a compulsion for the midgut to just herniate out through the umbilical umbilical cord or the vital intestinal channel, and then after forming the coils, that will be getting occupied its own position during the ninth week of the intrauterine life. So if we see it in the form of a diagram, this will be the outermost layer, the embryo, and here you can see something like the vital intestinal channel or the vital intestinal lymph node, and here we can see something which is developed from the endoderm, that is the gut, the foregut, the midgut, and the hindgut, and behind this foregut, midgut, and hindgut, we have the brain swellings. The most apical region have the brain swellings, and then the neural tube formation takes place, and even we have the notochord as well from this, which will be continuing in adult as the nucleus pulposus. So what the thing is like during this is all the foregut, this is the midgut, it is supplied by the celiac trunk, it is supplied by the superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery. This should undergo any number of coils, but the space is not enough here. So there is a necessity for this space to get herniated. So there is a necessity for this thing to get herniated. So this happens during the 6th week of intrauterine life, and by the 9th week it will be regressed back. So let us discuss more detail. Assuming this to be the anterior abdominal wall, and this will be the umbilicus. Here we have posterior abdominal wall. So in between this anterior abdominal wall, there is a done the red stitch. So there is a abdominal aorta. I'm drawing it for the abdominal aorta will not be there near the posterior abdominal wall, but on the abdominal aorta we have a celiac one which is associated with the foregut. Assuming to the developing gut, to be the stomach, the breathing. Here is the foregut, here the midgut, still further there will be the hindgut. This will be the abdominal aorta, this will be the celiac trunk supplying to the foregut, and this will be the midgut and the superior mesenteric artery supplying to the midgut, and the inferior mesenteric artery is also a branch of the abdominal aorta supplying to the hindgut. So what happens exactly is, during the first phase, degree of rotation is about 90 degrees. So what happens during this phase? So let us draw a schematic diagram first, then we can imagine. It's all about imagination. Let us draw a schematic first. We know that the superior mesenteric artery acts as the superior mesenteric artery. It acts as an axis, and through this the vital intestinal channel, the midgut will be herniating out. The midgut will be herniating out by keeping this superior mesenteric artery as the axis. So the first phase, the 90 degrees of this rotation occurs outside of the abdominal cavity. That is, as soon as the midgut herniates into the vital intestinal channel or the umbilical channel or umbilical cord, so there it will be like actually undergoing the first 90 degrees of this rotation. So here, just let me draw the schematic diagram. So assuming this to be the junction between the foregut and midgut, let it be the G gate, that is the duodenojejunal flexure, and assuming this thing to be the junction between the midgut and hindgut, which is nothing but the iliocecal junction. So what happens exactly is, initially, of course, these two things will not be in a straight line. But for our ease, we will assume these things to be in a straight line. I said it's a schematic diagram. So what happens? So first, this thing is the right side, this thing is the left side. So what happens first is the first degree 90 degree, the first stage of the rotation 90 degree stage. So what happens exactly? Unidirectional flexure will be entering into from the top it entering into the right side, and the iliocecal junction, which started at the bottom, that will be entering into the left side. So unidirectional junction and now here it comes to unidirectional flexion. After this thing has happened, then the regression of the physiological hernia takes place. Physiological hernia happens in each and every individual during developmental conditions during the 6th week of life. After undergoing the first stage of depression, that is about 90 degrees, now the physiological hernia, it starts regressing back. It starts regressing back. The entire this thing will be operating inside the abdominal cavity itself. So here, after entering into the abdominal cavity, the second stage, that is the next to 270 degrees of the development happens. So how it's going to happen? So I said this is superior ventral artery. The part of the midgut above the superior ventral artery is called as a pre-arterial segment, and the part of the midgut below the superior ventral artery is called as the post-arterial segment. This thing I just want to give. Now, what happens during the second stage of this rotation? The second stage is about 180 degrees. First is about 90 degrees is completed. Now, second stage. So this thing here, the nerve was a complete 180 degrees. And here, the iliocecal junction is reached here. During the first 90 degrees, it will be reaching here. And next, during the next 180 degrees, the iliocecal junction will be coming back to this place. This is the right, this is the left. And this will be the, after the second stage of rotation, this will be the position of the iliocecal junction. And after the second stage of the rotation, this will be the position. This is the 90 degrees, and this will be the position of duodenojejunal flexion. So this is the thing which you have to understand. Actually, iliocecal junction will not be there. It will be there on the right side only, no doubt about that. But it will not be into the right iliac fossa. It will be there in the proximal part only. So we're going to discuss about that later. So what happens exactly is, after the second stage of the development, the duodenum and jejunum usually come to lie on the left side. So the left side. This is the duodenal junction come to lie on the left side, as well as the iliocecal junction will be coming to the right side. While dissecting the cadaver, if you given a midline incision right from the xiphysis sternum, if you give the midline extension right from the xiphoid process of the sternum to the symphysis pubis, and if you just open into it, you can notice one thing, that is the transverse colon. Everything which is developed from the large intestine, like the ascending colon or the transverse colon or the descending colon, everything will be these till the descending colon. This will be there anteriorly or superficially, while the parts of the small intestines, like the duodenum, the gastroduodenal junction, the entire four parts of the duodenum, the ilio, from ileum, and these will be present a bit deep. Transverse colon will be present bit superficial. The colon, entire colon will be present superficial, and these rest of the small intestine will be presenting. So they will be there just behind this. So why this thing is happening? Why small intestine parts like the duodenum and the coils of ileum and cecum like bigger? And why this colon, the ascending colon, the transverse colon and the descending colon, why these things are lying superficially? The reason being, during the 9th week of intrauterine life, see, the timeline is very important. You have to remember it. The 6th week is the onset of the hernia. The 9th week is the regression of the physiological umbilical hernia. During the 9th week of this regression of the umbilical hernia, what happens exactly means, first the entire small intestine part will be migrating part. This thing, it's not only that the midgut alone will be participating in rotation. Even the foregut and hindgut also participate in rotation. But for our convenience, because the axis is present in the spherimecentric artery, the axis is more associated with the midgut. We are discussing starting it with the midgut. But even the fore and the hindgut also undergo rotation. So let us come to this topic. Here, what happens? The large intestine, that will be, it's like first the small intestine will be regressing. The small intestine will be regressing, so it will be present behind. When the large intestine comes above that, because the herniated content will be going, it will be coming first, and next comes this transverse colon, the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon. This will be lying in the superficial plane. This thing you have to remember. Now, while discussing about the mesentery, we have studied that, assuming this is the anterior abdominal wall, this is the posterior abdominal wall, and here you have the cerebrum, the peritoneum lining. This is the ventral mesentery, and here on the dorsal aspect you have the dorsal mesentery. We studied that most important vital viscera called as liver develops from the ventral or the anterior mesentery. The spleen develops from the posterior mesentery or the dorsal, the posterior or the dorsal mesentery. This is liver and so here, I just want to say you one thing, that we have studied in the development of mesentery also, like this thing, the lesser curvature of the stomach and the spleen, the hilum of the spleen, they will be related by a fold of peritoneum which is developed from the ventral mesentery that forms the lesser omentum. Beneath this lesser omentum, what we can see, the space, empty space, which is present behind this lesser omentum, which is nothing but which is connecting the lesser curvature of the stomach, connecting the lesser curvature of the stomach to the hilum of the liver, the porta hepatis of the liver, and that thing will be, that thing will be called as the lesser sac. The lesser sac is an empty sac. Well, in case of gastric ulcer, there occurs perforation of the gastrointestinal, perforation of the gastric mucosa. Even the contents, the acidic chyme, the contents will be, there is a probability that the acidic chyme, after perforating the stomach, it may enter into the lesser sac after piercing all the structures of the stomach bed. The stomach bed and all, what are those structures forming the stomach bed? That thing in gross anatomy we can study. But primarily, embryological aspect, we just remember that just behind the stomach we have, behind the lesser omentum, we have something called as the lesser sac. Now, proceeding further, here I would like to talk about the initially the stomach. In adult stomach, after dissecting the cadavers, you will see that it has an anterior surface, a posterior surface. The greater curvature will be present on the left side, the lesser curvature will be present on the right side. So during the embryological condition, it will not be like that. It will be, it will be in a different way. Instead of having an anterior and posterior surface, during the developmental conditions, we have the right surface and the left surface. Now after, the anterior one will be the left surface and the posterior will be the right surface. So what happens actually, after undergoing the rotation, so the thing which is forming this lesser curvature, that is something which is present on the right side, right surface will become the right margin or the lesser right curvature or the lesser curvature, and something which is present on the left side or is presenting, that will be formed, that will, after rotation, that will be forming the greater curvature. So they will be exchanged. Initially like this the stomach will be, and then here in an adult cadaver, so this will be the greater curvature, and this will be the lesser curvature, this will be the greater curvature, and next we have an anterior and posterior surface. In embryological conditions, instead of anterior and posterior surface, we have this right and left surface. The left surface here, right surface here, and this will be the right border, and this will be the left border, this will be the right border. So that thing happens, and here the most important thing associated with the rotation of the gut is duodenojejunal flexure. This part of the duodenojejunal flexure, it marks the junction of foregut and the midgut. Duodenojejunal structure mark the junction of foregut and midgut. You see duodenum. You see duodenum. It has 4 parts. First part, second part, third part, and the fourth part. So what happens exactly during the development of during the rotation of the gut? From the duodenojejunal flexure here, we have something called as the root of mesentery. Root of mesentery. It starts from the duodenojejunal flexure till the iliocecal junction. So right from this duodenojejunal flexure, here this is the duodenum, this is the duodenojejunal flexure. Further it continues the part of the midgut called as the jejunum, and from here to the here in the iliocecal junction, here there will be something called as the root of mesentery. So what is this root of mesentery? How it is formed? So let us come to the point. So we know that here between the C-shaped loops of the jejunum there lies something called as head of the pancreas, then the neck, the body, and the tail present to the posterior aspect. So here the just behind the the neck of the pancreas, we have the formation of the portal vein. Portal vein is formed by the union of the right tributary of the superior mesenteric vein and the left tributary of the splenic vein. Not only that, at this particular area, we have the abdominal aorta also. Abdominal aorta which is equal to the superior mesenteric artery. So this is the superior mesenteric artery, and this is the portal vein, and this thing will be the splenic vein, and this thing will be the superior mesenteric vein. So these two structures which are formed just behind the behind the neck of the pancreas, they will be continuing downwards. They will be present. We have read this thing in the gross anatomy of the pancreas as well as the duodenum also. And here at the duodenojejunal flexure, we have the origin of the root of the mesentery. This is the fourth part of the duodenum. We have the origin of the root of the mesentery here, and then from the superior mesenteric artery enters into the root of mesentery like this, and so the superior mesenteric vein leaves this root of mesentery forms. So this is how the root of mesentery extends from the root of mesentery holding the vascular structures of superior mesenteric artery and vein, starting from the duodenojejunal flexure in the iliocecal junction present in the right iliac fossa. This is how. So what happens? So this root of mesentery is holding on nothing but a midgut, right? And this will be divided into various points of jejunum and ilium. So this supermesenteric artery, after getting overlapped, so it's like a layer. It's like just like a cloth material. Now we have all seen those curtains. The curtains, they are hanged from a particular bar, and these things will be undergoing several plications. Plications, what I mean to say is like this. So they will be hanging to a bar. As soon as they are released from that bar, you can see several plication like things. This assuming this to be a bar and this to be the plication. In the same way, the root of mesentery acts like a bar, and the curtain will be acting like the cut of the mesentery itself. So here, like that thing will be. It will be actually a two-layered thing. Between these two layers these two layers will be overlapping on the superior mesenteric artery and the superior mesenteric vein, and thereby the superior mesenteric artery and the vein, they will be dividing into several branches, arterial branches, as well as venous tributaries, and finally these things will supply the jejunum and as well as the ilium. So while dissecting the cadaver, as soon as you open the abdomen, just try to just fold all the ilium and jejunum. It is easy. The ilium and jejunum are entirely, they will be enveloped by the mesentery. If you just hold on, remove it open, and then you can see the root of mesentery clearly. Even in atlas also it is given, in cadavers also you can appreciate easily. So right from the duodenojejunal junction to the right iliac fossa enclosing the vessels. So this is how it. So even in the gross anatomy also, while discussing about the ureter, the right ureter, the anterior relationships of this right ureter will be the superior, the relation will be the root of mesentery but not the left ureter. So assuming this to be the kidney and right kidney and this thing to be the right ureter, and we have somewhere here this is assuming that the D4 and this to be the duodenojejunal flexion, it comes like this all along the route from there, and the relationships of it will be assuming it to be the vertebral column, and we have the right psoas muscle. So this root of mesentery will be crossing the right psoas major muscle, and we even have something called as the right gonadal vessels, the right psoas major muscle. So these are the relationships of the right ureter. But they, it will not be, it's checked in your exams, it's checked in your, I think JITMER exams it has been asked. Which of the following structure is actually not associated with these relationships of the root of the mesentery? They have given two options, one is the right ureter and left ureter, and obviously left ureter is not the answer, because left ureter is associated with another peritoneal relationship called as sigmoid mesocolon. Sigmoid mesocolon will be something like a triangular shaped portion. The apex of this left sigmoid, apex of this is the apex of the sigmoid colon, triangular shaped sigmoid mesocolon, and the apex of the sigmoid mesocolon will be in relationship with this left kidney, but the right kidney is associated with this particular structure, that is the root of the mesentery. So this thing I would like to say about regarding the development. And here one thing I would like to say, add one more point in the second, after the second stage, during the rotation of the gut, the next 180 degrees happens, and during the next 180 degrees, the ileocecal junction will be there on the right side, but they will not be descended into the right iliac fossa. Why? Because the descent of this right iliac fossa from the right side into the descent of this ileocecal junction from the right side to the right iliac fossa occurs because of this differential growth. The differential growth of this gut that will promote the descent from the apical, the upper level of the ileocecal junction from upper level to the right iliac fossa, while the contribution of this rotation of the gut is just till that of the till that of the ileocecal junction coming to the right surface. The further descent is favored by the differential growth of the gut, but not that of the rotation of the gut. So in simple aspects, we have discussed about the mesentery, the root of the mesentery, the physiological umbilical hernia, the regression, how it regresses, and what are all the aspects which has to be regressed. And we have even this rotation of the gut which is happening in 2 stages, and like what are these things which have to happen. So that's it. And so that's all. Well, let us discuss about some of the applied anatomical aspects of the rotation of the gut. Applied aspect of the rotation of the gut. So we have commonly 3 disorders which are associated with the rotation of the gut. The first thing leading to non-rotation. Second thing will be the mixed rotation. Okay. Mixed rotation. Rotation. Third thing will be non-rotation. So what basically non-rotation is? We have already studied that, this will be the, assuming this particular thing to be the uronogeminal junction, and this will be the endocycal junction. Standard was the first 90 degrees, standard was here it will be, and this will be endocycal. The urono junction will be here in the first 90 degrees, and endocycal junction will be here, and this is the right side, this is the left side. Endocycal junction will be on the left side in the first 90 degrees, and later on complete 180 degrees will be happening. The urono junction will be coming here. So here it is position is occupied by the uronogeminal junction. From this here, this is occupied here on the right side by the iliocecal junction. So what happens during this process of non-rotation is the second 180 degree step it won't happen. I repeat, the first 90 degree step it will happen, but the second 180 degrees rotation will not happen. So what happens if at all the rotation of the gut stops at first 90 degrees only? We'll see that. So this will be the UJ, this will be the IC, this will be the right side, this will be the left side. Only first rotation has happened. The first 90 degree anti-clockwise rotation itself has happened. Second rotation has not happened. The uronogeminal junction will be coming to the right side, while the iliocecal junction will be coming to the left. The uronogeminal junction will be there on the right side. The iliocecal junction will be there on the left side. So how it will be? Just imagine. The concept will become clear once you see your embryological text. The diagrams are given very artistically. It is not possible to show with chalk and bone. So the right iliac fossa, I said rotation is responsible only for the iliocecal junction. The rotation is responsible till it comes to the right part. But the descent into the right iliac fossa, this will be favored by the differential growth, I said. So if it stops here only, it stops here to the left side only. This thing happens later. The differential growth and to the right side this occurs after completion of next 180 degrees. But let us restrict ourselves only the first 90 degrees. We restrict ourselves to the first 90 degrees. The uronogeminal junction will be in the right side, and the iliocecal junction will be on the left side. So it will be like this, completely opposite. You could imagine that thing by comparing it to your own body. So if what happens if the iliocecal junction is present on the left side? This is the left side. This is the right side. This is the left side. Here will be the iliocecal junction. This is the vermiform appendix. This is all the colon and other ligaments of the large intestine. And here this will be the left side, and here will be the DJ flexure, and these are the some of the points of the small intestine. So what happens is the entire large intestine content will be restricted to the right side, and the entire small intestinal content will be restricted to the left side. So this particular thing where the rotation will be seized at the first 90 degrees of the development, this is called as non-rotation. So why this thing particularly, it's a point of discussion in embryological in the developmental anatomy means we can leave the patient like that only. So what will be the problem? We can leave the pediatric infant like that only. What is the problem? The problem is there will be several volvulus occurring as a result of this process. What is a volvulus? After coming into general surgery, finally will be done detail about this volvulus. But simply here I'll just give you the basic information about the volvulus. Volvulus means just like coiling of intestine on its own part. Like if you consider this, how can I say? So if you consider a tube or a wire-like structure, if it is just left like randomly, there is every possibility that it may just loop around itself. This particular thing is called as volvulus. We have volvulus occurs at several other places also during the adult part. I mean during the adult, even after the rotation got completely in a fair manner, how it has to be going. But here if we left it like that, the entire large intestine on the right side and the small intestine on the left side, that will result in the coiling of this intestinal loops over itself, and that is called as the volvulus, which is a very, it results, if it just it turns around itself, the vascular supply may be impaired, entire part may get ischemic, necrosis, gangrene, and several other complications will happen, and the patient will die. That's an acute abdominal emergency, volvulus, so the patient may be die. So this particular thing, so we have to operate this child. The pediatric surgeons will handle the issue from here onwards. So this is about the non-rotation of the child. Next we will be dealing about the next thing is another entity called as fixed rotation of the gut. This fixed rotation of the gut, so it's entirely, this thing comes under surgical domain. The basic things are only discussed in the, the anatomical part. So what is there exactly? We have this duodenal flexure, and here the roots of the small intestine, and again it will come like this. See, from everything. This is the ascending colon, vermiform appendix, the transverse, and the splenic flexure, hepatic flexure, descending colon, the sigmoid colon, rectum, and anal colon. This is how the normal gastrointestinal tract. So what happens is here, because of this mixed rotation, so what happens exactly is there will be something called as a lag span. This will be something like clockwise, anti-clockwise. Instead of having both anti-clockwise, one first stage will be clockwise, second will be anti-clockwise, and there will be association of this peritoneum to these coils of the small intestine, and that will be completely peritoneum will not let it further undergo rotation. It will be in the middle of the rotation. The peritoneum gets folded upon the coils of the intestine. It's just like if we leave that small threads, strings, it will get knot over itself. The same thing will happen because of this peritoneal form called as lax band. So what happens? This lax band is it doesn't let it further, and every coil of the intestine just gets stuck into it, and that's how the case of this mixed rotation will appear. And when we consult the gastrointestinal surgeon, or you can see we can go even for the pediatric surgeon, what they will do is there is something called as in general surgery, there is something called as Strong's procedure. Strong procedure, the details need not be studied in the anatomy, but so far as it is completely surgical entity, as I said it previously. Strong's procedure, they will entirely dissect this, they will entirely dissecting this Ladd's band, and how they will be reorganizing this thing into this gastrointestinal tract is quite, it's completely complicated and surgical aspects. This is what about the mixed rotation of the gut.